The cafeteria exploded into chaos the moment Isabella Kingsley's lunch tray hit the floor. But it wasn't the scattered food that made every student freeze. It was the two boys standing over her like territorial wolves, their friendship fracturing in real time. Kang Min-ho's hand was fisted in his best friend's collar, his voice deadly calm as he said 3 words that would change everything. "She's not yours." Park Jin-woo's laugh was bitter, dangerous. "She's not yours either, but I saw her first." Isabella looked between them, her heart hammering, realizing too late that she'd become the spark that would burn their entire world down. Welcome to K-Fairy Tale Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. 3 weeks earlier, Isabella had walked into Seoul International Academy with one goal: survive senior year and secure her university scholarship. She was used to being invisible, preferred it actually. Her full scholarship made her an outsider among Korea's elite families, and her curves drew unwanted attention in a school obsessed with impossible beauty standards. She kept her head down, her uniform perfectly pressed, her natural hair pulled into a neat bun that took an hour each morning. She didn't expect anyone to notice her. She certainly didn't expect him. Kang Min-ho sat in the back of the literature classroom like a king surveying his kingdom. At 18, he was everything Seoul's elite parents wanted their sons to be. Student council president, captain of the basketball team, national debate champion with 3 university scouts already fighting over him. His best friend Park Jin-woo sat beside him, equally golden, equally untouchable. They'd been inseparable since elementary school, 2 sides of the same perfect coin. Everyone knew they came as a package deal. What one wanted, the other supported without question, until Isabella walked through that classroom door. Min-ho saw her first. Later, he would replay that moment endlessly, trying to pinpoint exactly when his entire world shifted. She moved through the classroom with quiet confidence, her dark skin luminous against the harsh fluorescent lights, her profile elegant as she claimed a seat near the window. Something in his chest constricted painfully, like his lungs had forgotten their basic function. He couldn't look away, didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at him to walk over there, claim the seat beside her, make sure every other guy in school understood she was completely off limits. The possessive thought should have alarmed him. It didn't. Jin-woo followed his gaze and went completely still. He'd known Min-ho his entire life, could read his micro-expressions like a second language. Right now, his best friend was looking at the new girl like she'd just rewritten the fundamental laws of his universe. Jin-woo turned to study her more carefully, trying to understand what had caused such an unprecedented reaction. That's when he felt it too, something magnetic, impossible to ignore or rationalize. She laughed at something another student said, and the sound wrapped around his chest like a physical touch. He wanted to make her laugh like that, wanted those warm brown eyes to light up when she looked at him specifically. The next morning, both boys arrived at school early. Min-ho leaned against Isabella's locker, having bribed a student aide for her locker number and combination. Jin-woo appeared seconds later carrying coffee and pastries from the expensive bakery 3 blocks away that had a 40-minute line. They locked eyes across the hallway, realization dawning slowly and painfully. Neither spoke, neither moved. Then Isabella rounded the corner, her backpack slung over one shoulder, and the fragile, unspoken truce shattered into 1,000 pieces. She stopped when she saw them flanking her locker, confusion flickering across her beautiful face. Min-ho straightened first, his carefully constructed smile not quite reaching his dark eyes. Jin-woo stepped forward with the coffee, his natural charm effortless and well-practiced. She looked between them, sensing something fundamentally wrong but unable to name it. The hallway gradually filled with early arriving students, all of them stopping to watch the unprecedented scene of Seoul Academy's golden boys openly competing for the same girl's attention. Whispers started immediately, spreading through the building like wildfire. Later that day, Isabella worked her afternoon shift at the cafe near campus, trying to process the strangeness of her morning. She'd politely declined both offerings, uncomfortable with the intense attention and the barely concealed tension radiating between the two friends. But she couldn't shake the feeling of their eyes on her throughout every class, the weight of their combined focus like a physical presence against her skin. The cafe door chimed and Min-ho walked in alone, his school uniform replaced by expensive casual clothes that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He ordered an Americano without looking at the menu, his gaze fixed intently on her face. "Can we talk?" he asked when she brought his drink to the counter, his voice lower and more intimate than she expected given the public setting. She should have said no. should have maintained the careful distance she'd constructed around herself since arriving at this school. Instead, she found herself nodding, gesturing to the empty corner table during what was technically her break time. They sat across from each other, and Isabella waited for him to explain why the most powerful student in school was actively seeking her out. Minho seemed to be gathering his thoughts carefully, his fingers drumming against the tabletop in an uncharacteristic display of genuine nerves. "I want to get to know you," he said finally, the words deceptively simple but weighted with layers of meaning. Isabella's traitorous heart skipped despite her better judgment. "Why?" she asked, genuinely confused by his interest. "You don't know anything about me. I could be completely boring." "That's exactly why I want to get to know you," he replied, something intense and raw flickering in his dark eyes. "I saw you in literature class and I couldn't think about anything else for the rest of the day." It should sound like a rehearsed line, should make her roll her eyes at the obvious attempt at charm. Instead, his brutal honesty made her breath catch unexpectedly. The cafe door chimed again with perfect, terrible timing. Jinwoo stood in the entrance, his expression carefully blank when he spotted them together in the corner. Something passed between the two boys, silent communication built on years of friendship now strained by something neither wanted to openly acknowledge. Jinwoo approached their small table with easy confidence, sliding into the booth directly beside Isabella before she could form a protest. Minho's jaw visibly tightened, his knuckles turning white where his hand gripped his coffee cup hard enough to hurt. Jinwoo ordered an expensive latte from Isabella's coworker, then turned his full attention to her, effectively cutting Minho completely out of the conversation through sheer force of charisma. "So you're the mysterious scholarship student everyone's suddenly talking about," he said, his smile warm and genuine, but his eyes sharp as broken glass when they flicked briefly to Minho. Isabella felt like she was missing something absolutely crucial. Like these two were having an entirely different conversation beneath their superficially polite words. The tension built steadily until she couldn't take it anymore, excusing herself to return to work even though her break technically wasn't over yet. The following week established a pattern that made Isabella's head spin constantly. Everywhere she went, one or both of them mysteriously appeared. Minho drove her home from school in his expensive imported car, refusing to accept no for an answer when unexpected rain started falling. Jinwoo showed up at the cafe during every single shift, staying until closing time and insisting on walking her to the bus stop afterward. They brought elaborate lunches, saved premium seats in every class, helped with assignments she definitely didn't ask for help completing. Their legendary friendship visibly fractured under the immense weight of their competition, the easy lifelong camaraderie replaced by careful brittle politeness and barely concealed hostility. Other students started treating Isabella completely differently. Some girls approached with thinly veiled warnings about getting between the school's most powerful friendship and destroying Seoul Academy's perfect social order. Others looked at her with pure, undiluted envy or open contempt, fundamentally unable to understand what made her special enough to capture both boys' obsessive attention simultaneously. Isabella tried desperately to discourage them both, but Minho was persistent in a way that felt absolutely inevitable. Jinwoo was relentlessly charming, using their genuinely shared sense of humor to create moments of real connection that left her breathless and confused and wanting. One quiet afternoon, Isabella stayed late in the library, trying to catch up on assignments while simultaneously avoiding the complicated mess her life had rapidly become. She was completely alone when Minho appeared, seemingly from nowhere, sliding into the chair directly across from her with predatory grace. "We need to talk about this," he said without any preamble, gesturing meaningfully between them. "About the fact that I genuinely can't stop thinking about you. About the fact that you feel it too. This thing building between us. Don't even try to deny it." Isabella's fingers stilled completely on her textbook. She could deny it. Should absolutely deny it for everyone's sake. But lying directly to his face felt fundamentally wrong in a way she couldn't rationally explain. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your best friend," she said quietly, her eyes fixed on the page rather than meeting his intense gaze. Minho reached across the library table, his fingers impossibly gentle as he tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You're not the reason this is happening," he said, his voice rough with raw emotion. "This was always inevitable. The moment I saw you, everything else stopped mattering completely. I just didn't know Jinwoo would feel exactly the same way." The confession hung heavy between them, loaded with dangerous implications. Isabella pulled back abruptly, her heart racing as she gathered her scattered books with shaking hands. "This is wrong," she said, even as her traitorous body leaned involuntarily toward him despite her words. "You two have been best friends literally forever. I absolutely won't be the person who destroys that." She left before he could formulate a response. His raw words made her feel wanted in ways she'd never experienced. That same evening, Jinwoo appeared outside her apartment building, having somehow discovered her address through means she didn't want to examine. He stood in the pouring rain, his uniform completely soaked through, his expression more raw and vulnerable than she'd ever seen. "I need you to choose," he said when she came down to the building lobby, his voice breaking slightly. "Not because I want to pressure you unfairly, but because Minho absolutely won't back down, and I can't keep pretending I don't want you just as desperately as he does. We're systematically destroying each other, and I genuinely don't know how to stop it anymore." Isabella stared at him. This boy she barely actually knew who somehow looked at her like she held his entire world balanced in her hands. "I never asked for any of this," she said, her voice breaking with frustration and guilt. "I never wanted to be fought over like some prize to be won. I just wanted to finish school peacefully and maybe make one real friend who actually saw me as a complete person instead of a complication." Jinwoo stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the rain cold radiating from his soaked clothes. "You think we don't genuinely see you?" he asked softly, something breaking in his expression. "Isabella, I see absolutely everything. The way you unconsciously bite your lip when you're concentrating hard. How you help struggling students without expecting anything in return. The fact that you work 2 exhausting jobs and still manage perfect grades. I see you completely. And it terrifies me how desperately I want to be the person you ultimately choose." The next day at school, the simmering tension finally reached its inevitable breaking point. Someone had started vicious rumors. Ugly whispers about Isabella deliberately using her looks to manipulate the school's most popular boys for social advancement and financial support. The cruel gossip followed her through every hallway, made her the absolute center of negative attention in the worst possible way. She kept her head high with immense effort, refusing to let them see her internally breaking, but inside she was drowning in humiliation and helpless anger. She found Minho and Jinwoo in a heated argument near the senior lockers, their voices low and controlled, but their aggressive body language drawing a crowd. The accusations they threw at each other made students stop and openly stare, watching the completely unprecedented public breakdown of Seoul Academy's legendary golden friendship. "You're obsessed beyond reason," Jinwoo said sharply, his voice cutting. "You can't stand that she might actually choose me instead of you." Minho's laugh was bitter and humorless. "This isn't about competition or winning. This is about the fact that you saw exactly how I looked at her, and immediately decided you wanted her too. You've never had to genuinely fight for anything in your entire privileged life, and now you can't handle that. I won't just politely step aside like always." That's when Isabella's lunch tray hit the floor with a deafening crash, cutting cleanly through their argument. Both boys turned simultaneously to find her standing there, her eyes bright with unshed tears and righteous anger that made her seem 6 feet tall. "Stop," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent cafeteria. "Just stop this right now. I'm not some object you can claim or fight over like a trophy. I'm a complete person, and I'm absolutely done with both of you treating me like I'm just a prize in whatever twisted game you're playing." She turned and walked out with her head high, leaving them standing there with the scattered remains of her lunch and the crushing weight of her words. Minho moved first, his hand catching Jinwoo's collar before his friend could follow her. "She's not yours," he said, the words cold and absolutely final. Jinwoo shoved him back hard, months of carefully controlled resentment finally exploding. "She's not yours either," he shot back furiously. "But I saw her first, remember? I was the one who tried to talk to you about her rationally, who thought maybe we could both be her friend without destroying everything. You're the one who turned it into a competition neither of us can win." The cafeteria erupted in complete chaos as they came together, fists flying in a way that genuinely shocked everyone who'd watched their friendship define the entire social hierarchy for years. Teachers rushed in from 3 directions, physically pulling them apart, but the damage was catastrophically done. By the end of that day, both were suspended for fighting. Isabella was a social pariah blamed for everything, and the golden friendship that had seemed absolutely unbreakable lay in complete ruins. A few days later, Isabella returned to school alone, her head held impossibly high despite the constant whispers following her everywhere. She found her locker systematically covered in cruel messages, the words cutting and deeply personal. She was cleaning them off with shaking hands when strong hands settled gently on her shoulders, turning her carefully. Minho stood there, his face still visibly bruised from the fight. his eyes soft in a way that made her chest physically ache. "I'm sorry," he said simply, the words inadequate but genuine, for absolutely everything. For making you feel like an object instead of the incredible person you are. For letting my feelings make me act like an entitled idiot. For not protecting you from the gossip and the rumors. You deserved so much better. "Where's Jinwoo?" she asked, the question surprising them both. Minho's expression tightened painfully. "We're not speaking at all. He thinks I deliberately ruined everything. Maybe I actually did." Isabella reached up carefully, her fingers impossibly gentle as she traced the dark bruise along his jaw. "You both ruined it," she said quietly but firmly, "by trying to win instead of just letting me know you as actual people. By making this about competition instead of genuine connection. I don't want to be won like a game, Minho. I want to be chosen because someone actually knows me and genuinely cares about who I am." That evening, she found Jinwoo at the cafe, sitting in his usual spot with untouched coffee he clearly wasn't drinking. He looked up when she approached, surprise and desperate hope warring visibly in his expression. She slid into the booth directly across from him, her hands wrapped around her own cup for warmth and something to occupy her nervous hands. "Talk to me," she said gently, "not as someone trying to win me over, but as someone who wants to know me. Tell me about you, about what you genuinely want from life, about the person you are when you're not competing with your best friend." Jinwoo stared at her for a long moment, then something in his carefully constructed expression cracked wide open. He talked for over an hour, sharing things he'd never told anyone, dreams that existed beyond the suffocating expectations of his family's wealth and status, fears about never being seen as more than his prestigious last name. Isabella listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, saw him as a complete person instead of half of Seoul's golden duo. When they finally left the cafe together, something had fundamentally shifted between them, fragile but absolutely real. The next week, she did exactly the same thing with Minho, meeting him after basketball practice and demanding complete honesty without games. He was significantly more guarded at first, his habitual control hard to break through. But eventually, he opened up about the crushing pressure of being the heir everyone expected perfection from, about feeling like he couldn't breathe under the immense weight of his family's impossible expectations. Isabella saw the lonely boy beneath the golden exterior, desperate for someone who wanted him for himself instead of what he represented. By the end of the month, an uneasy truce had formed. Minho and Jinwoo still weren't speaking directly, but they'd stopped actively competing for her attention. Isabella spent deliberate time with each of them separately, getting to know them as complete individuals, trying to untangle her own complicated feelings from the chaos of recent weeks. She found herself drawn to both of them in different ways. Minho's intensity and hidden vulnerability called to something deep in her soul, while Jinwoo's unexpected depth and humor made her feel genuinely light and seen. Then everything changed again. Isabella received a formal summons to the academic dean's office on a Tuesday morning. She walked in confused, found 3 stern administrators waiting, and felt her stomach drop when they showed her the evidence. Screenshots of her final literature essay, highlighted sections that allegedly matched an online source word for word, accusations of plagiarism, academic dishonesty, violation of the school's honor code. Her scholarship was immediately suspended pending a full investigation. She was barred from attending classes until the matter was officially resolved. The hallway outside the dean's office blurred as she stumbled out, her entire world collapsing. Without her scholarship, she couldn't afford to stay enrolled. Without enrollment, she couldn't apply to universities. Without university, her grandmother's medical bills would bury them both. Everything she'd worked for, every sacrifice she'd made, destroyed by accusations she knew were completely false. She made it to the bathroom before the tears came, violent and overwhelming. Minho found her an hour later on the school rooftop, her face buried in her hands. He didn't say anything initially, just sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unspoken. "You shouldn't be here," Isabella whispered eventually, her voice completely wrecked. "This is going to destroy my entire future. You need to stay far away from me." He turned to face her fully, his hand gentle as he tilted her chin up. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "Every detail. Who accused you, what evidence they have, everything." Isabella shook her head desperately. "Minho, if you get involved, your father will destroy you. Your university scouts will disappear. You'll lose everything you've worked for." His jaw set with absolute determination. "Then I'll lose it," he said simply. "But I'm not abandoning you. Tell me everything now." She told him through broken tears about the fabricated screenshots, the suspension, the impossible situation. Minho listened intently, his expression growing colder and more focused with each detail. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and made a single call. "Jinwoo," he said when his former best friend answered. "I need your help. It's about Isabella." There was a long pause. Then Minho's expression softened slightly. "I know we're not okay. I know you have every right to hang up. But she needs us both. Someone's trying to destroy her, and I can't do this alone." The next morning, both boys were waiting outside the dean's office when Isabella arrived for her formal hearing. Minho had spent the entire night gathering evidence, using his student council access to pull server logs and metadata that proved the screenshots were doctored. Jinwoo had convinced 3 classmates to provide sworn statements about Isabella's writing process and work ethic. Together, they presented an ironclad case that the accusations were completely fabricated. The academic board took 2 days to review everything. 2 days where Isabella couldn't eat or sleep, where Minho stayed with her constantly, where Jinwoo showed up with food and quiet support. When the decision finally came, it was complete vindication. The accusations were dismissed entirely. Her scholarship was reinstated with a formal apology. An investigation was launched into who had fabricated the evidence, but the damage had already spread like poison. Minho's father had heard about his involvement, about how he'd used school resources and family connections to defend a scholarship student. The consequences came swiftly. His father withdrew support for his university applications, claiming Minho had proven he wasn't ready for the responsibility. 2 of his 3 athletic scouts pulled their offers, citing concerns about his judgment and priorities. His student council position was challenged by parents who thought he'd acted inappropriately. Isabella found him alone in the gym that evening, shooting baskets with mechanical precision. She watched him for several minutes before speaking. "You lost everything," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "Because of me." Minho caught the ball and turned to face her. "I didn't lose everything," he said, walking toward her slowly. "I lost things that don't matter. Scholarships can be earned elsewhere. My father's approval was never really mine to begin with. The student council position is just a title." He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You want to know what I would have lost if I'd done nothing?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "You, the chance to prove I'm someone worth believing in, the ability to look at myself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. Those are things I can't replace or earn back, Isabella. Those matter." Tears streamed down her face as she looked at him, this boy who'd sacrificed everything without hesitation. "I love you," she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. "I'm in love with you, and I don't know what to do about it." Minho's expression transformed, hope and joy and relief flooding his features. "Say it again," he breathed. "Please." "I love you," she said more clearly, her hands fisting in his practice jersey. "I love you, and I'm terrified because everyone around you gets hurt, and I don't know how to protect you from the consequences of choosing me." His hands framed her face with infinite gentleness. "You don't protect me from consequences," he said fiercely. "You stand beside me while we face them together. That's how this works. That's what love means." He leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly at first, tentative and questioning, then deeper as months of restraint and longing finally broke free. Minho kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning, his hands careful even as desperation leaked through every movement. Isabella's world narrowed to the taste of him, the solid warmth of his body, the way he kissed her like he'd been dying for this exact moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he murmured. "Take you on real dates. Meet your grandmother properly. Let everyone know you're mine if you'll have me. Court you the way you deserve." Isabella smiled through her tears. "I'd like that," she whispered. "All of it." They walked out of the gym hand in hand, and immediately ran into Jinwoo standing in the hallway. He'd clearly heard everything, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes reflecting genuine pain. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Jinwoo smiled, sad but real. "Take care of her," he said to Minho, his voice steady despite everything. "Or you'll answer to me." He turned to Isabella. "And you take care of him too. He's going to need it with his father cutting him off." "Wait," Isabella said, reaching for his arm. "Jinwoo, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." He shook his head gently. "You didn't hurt me by being honest," he said. "You'd have hurt me by pretending. I love you enough to want you happy, even if it's not with me." He looked at Minho. "We're not okay yet, but we will be. Brothers fight, but they don't stop being brothers. The following weeks brought unexpected challenges and surprising grace. Minho's father remained furious, but his mother quietly helped him apply to universities without the family name attached. He found a job tutoring younger students, worked relentlessly to prove he could succeed on his own merit. Isabella watched him transform from someone who'd never questioned his privilege into someone who understood the value of earned success. Jinwoo slowly rebuilt his friendship with both of them, the process messy and occasionally painful, but ultimately genuine. He started dating someone from the debate team, a sharp-tongued girl who made him laugh and challenged him constantly. The four of them sometimes studied together, the dynamic strange but functional. School remained difficult. Rumors still followed Isabella, but they lost their power when she stopped caring what people thought. Minho's public defense of her had cost him socially, but it had also revealed who his real friends were. The student council position went to someone else, but he discovered he didn't actually miss it. He'd been performing for so long that finding his authentic self felt like finally breathing properly. 2 months after everything exploded, new evidence emerged about who had fabricated the plagiarism accusations. A student from a wealthy family, someone who'd wanted Minho's attention and saw Isabella as an obstacle. The revelation was satisfying but ultimately irrelevant. The damage had been done and survived. They were stronger for it. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and the constant pressure of university applications. Minho applied to 6 schools without his father's connections, relying entirely on his own merits. Isabella applied to the same universities, plus several backup options. They studied together constantly, their apartment becoming a second home for both of them as they prepared for entrance exams. One evening, as they took a break on her apartment's small balcony, Minho pulled her close. "Whatever happens with universities," he said quietly, "we're doing this together. Same city, same life, same future. Even if it means we both go to our 4th choice schools." Isabella leaned into his warmth. "What if we don't get into the same places?" she asked, voicing the fear that kept her awake some nights. "Then we pick the one that works best for both of us," he said simply. "Not the most prestigious, not the one with the best program. The one that lets us build a life together. That's what matters." His certainty soothed something anxious in her chest. They stayed like that for a long time, watching the Seoul skyline light up as evening fell. 2 teenagers who'd found something real in the chaos. Jinwoo's friendship with Minho fully healed one afternoon when they finally sat down and talked through everything. It happened in the school library. Both of them supposed to be studying, but instead, working through months of hurt and resentment. "I was jealous," Jinwoo admitted. "Not just of you having her, but of how certain you were. You knew immediately what you wanted and you went after it. I second-guessed everything." Minho was quiet for a moment. "I was terrified every second," he said eventually. "I just hid it better. Every time I pushed forward, I thought I was about to lose everything. The friendship, the girl, my entire future. I wasn't certain, Jinwoo, I was desperate." Jinwoo looked at his oldest friend and saw the truth there. They shook hands formally, then hugged roughly, years of brotherhood reasserting itself. Entrance exam results arrived in March. Isabella got into her top choice with a full scholarship. Minho got accepted to 3 schools including the same university, though without scholarship support. His mother helped quietly, his father still refusing to acknowledge his existence. They celebrated together, the relief overwhelming after months of uncertainty. The final months of senior year felt different. Lighter somehow, despite the constant pressure and looming goodbyes. Isabella and Minho were inseparable, their relationship deepening in ways that had nothing to do with drama or competition. They studied together, worked their respective jobs, planned their university schedules to maximize time together. They learned each other's habits and quirks, the comfortable intimacy of people building a real partnership. One Saturday, Minho took Isabella to meet his mother officially. His father wasn't home, which was deliberate timing. His mother welcomed Isabella warmly, seeing immediately what her son loved about this girl. Over tea, she shared stories about Minho's childhood, the sensitive boy beneath the controlled exterior. "You've changed him," she said to Isabella privately. "Made him someone I'd hoped he could be, but feared the business world would kill. Thank you for loving my son." Isabella's grandmother met Minho properly around the same time. She'd seen him briefly before, but this was different. Formal. She asked him direct questions about his plans, his ability to support himself without family money, his commitment to her granddaughter. Minho answered everything honestly, including admitting he was still figuring out who he was without his father's influence. Her grandmother studied him carefully, then smiled. "Good," she said. Anyone who has all the answers at 18 is lying to themselves. You'll figure it out together. That's what partnership means. She gave them her blessing with tears in her eyes, seeing how her granddaughter glowed when she looked at this boy. Prom arrived with all its complicated politics. Minho asked Isabella formally, despite them obviously going together. He showed up at her apartment with flowers and a nervous smile, doing everything by the book. She said yes, like there was ever any question. They went as a group with Jinwoo and his girlfriend, the four of them laughing and taking photos and enjoying the night without the weight of earlier drama. On the dance floor, with cheesy music playing and terrible decorations everywhere, Minho held Isabella close. "This time last year I didn't know you existed," he said quietly. "Now I can't imagine my life without you in it." Isabella rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. "You're stuck with me now," she teased gently. "No takebacks." "Good," he murmured into her hair. "That's exactly what I want." The final weeks of school blurred together. Exams, graduation preparations, senior events designed to be memorable. Isabella was named valedictorian, her academic comeback story inspiring, despite the administration's discomfort with how it reflected on them. She spent days writing her speech, wanting to say something meaningful without being preachy. Graduation day arrived with perfect weather and emotional chaos. Families filled the auditorium, cameras ready, tissues prepared. Isabella stood backstage in her cap and gown, her hands shaking with nerves. Minho found her there, taking her hands in his. "You're going to be amazing," he said firmly. "Just speak from your heart. That's all anyone needs." She walked out to the podium as valedictorian, her voice initially shaky but growing stronger. She talked about resilience, about the cost of standing up for what you believe in, about the people who prove their love through action instead of words. She talked about second chances and the courage it takes to choose your own path instead of following expectations. Her eyes found Minho in the crowd, and something passed between them, a promise and a future and a choice they'd made together. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Students who'd once whispered cruel things stood and cheered. Teachers who doubted her smiled with genuine pride. Her grandmother cried happy tears in the front row. Minho looked at her like she'd personally hung every star in the sky. Later, on the school steps with the sun setting behind them and caps scattered everywhere, Minho took her hand. "We're going to the same university," he said, his smile soft and genuine. "Different programs, same city, same future. We're going to build something together, Isabella. Something that's completely ours." She squeezed his hand, her heart full despite everything they'd survived. "What if it's hard?" she asked. "What if there are more people who try to tear us apart? Then we'll face them together," he said simply. "Like we always have. We've survived the worst of high school politics and came out stronger. University will be different, but we'll handle it." Jinwoo appeared beside them, his girlfriend laughing at something on her phone. "Can I get in on this emotional moment?" he asked with exaggerated drama. "Or is it exclusive to couples who've survived academic warfare and public cafeteria meltdowns?" Isabella laughed, pulling him into a hug that felt like forgiveness and healing fully realized. The four of them stood on those steps, their friendship scarred but not broken, their futures uncertain but chosen. Other graduates milled around them, taking photos and making promises to stay in touch that some would keep and others wouldn't. But in that moment, everything felt possible. Minho's mother appeared with his father, the first time Isabella had seen them together. His father looked uncomfortable but not hostile, a significant improvement. His mother embraced them both, whispering congratulations and promising continued support. Even his father managed a stiff nod of acknowledgement, not quite approval, but not rejection either. Small steps. As the crowd thinned and families headed to celebratory dinners, Isabella and Minho found themselves alone on the steps. The building that had witnessed so much drama and growth and transformation stood behind them, soon to be filled with new students and new stories. "Thank you," Isabella said quietly, "for choosing me even when it cost you everything, for proving that some things matter more than status or approval." Minho pulled her close, his arms secure around her waist. "You don't thank someone for choosing what they can't live without," he said. "You're not a sacrifice, Isabella. You're the point. Everything I gave up was weight I didn't need. You helped me figure out who I actually am underneath all the expectations. That's worth more than any scholarship or my father's approval." They kissed there on the steps as the sun set, two teenagers who'd somehow found something real and lasting in the chaos of senior year. When they pulled apart, Isabella smiled against his lips. "So what now?" she asked. "What happens next in our story?" "Now we go to university. We study and work and build careers. We figure out adult life together. We make mistakes and fix them. We keep choosing each other every single day. Sounds perfect, Isabella murmured. Sounds terrifying, he corrected gently, but perfect too. They walked down the steps hand in hand, leaving Seoul International Academy behind, but carrying everything they'd learned with them. Jinwoo and his girlfriend waited by the gate, ready to head to dinner together. The four of them piled into Jinwoo's car, laughing and arguing about where to eat, the easy comfort of people who'd survived something difficult together. At the restaurant, surrounded by friends and food and celebration, Isabella looked around the table and felt overwhelming gratitude. 6 months ago, she'd been alone and invisible, just trying to survive. Now she had Minho, whose love had proven itself through sacrifice and unwavering support. She had Jinwoo, whose friendship had survived heartbreak and emerged stronger. She had a future that looked bright and full of possibility. Minho caught her looking and raised his glass of water. To new beginnings, he said. To leaving high school behind and figuring out who we want to be. To facing whatever comes next together. Everyone clinked glasses, the toast both simple and profound. Isabella leaned against Minho's shoulder, feeling his arm come around her automatically, and thought about how much had changed. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined this. Couldn't have imagined being loved like this, publicly and proudly, by someone who'd proven his commitment through action. Couldn't have imagined surviving false accusations and social warfare and coming out stronger. Couldn't have imagined having real friends who saw her completely and valued her anyway. Life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. As the evening wound down and people started heading home, Minho walked Isabella to the bus stop one last time. Next week, I'm getting my license and my own car, he said. No more buses for you. She bumped his shoulder with hers. I like the bus, she protested without heat. Gives me time to think. He pulled her close, his voice soft. I like knowing you're safe and not waiting in the rain, he countered. Let me do this. Let me take care of you in the ways I can. Isabella looked up at him. This boy who'd become a man through adversity and choice. Okay, she said simply. But I'm taking care of you too. That's how partnership works, remember? Equal together. Minho's smile was beautiful in its genuine happiness. Deal, he murmured, then kissed her softly. The bus pulled up and she had to go. She looked back to see him standing there, watching until the bus was out of sight, keeping her safe the only way he could in that moment. That night, lying in bed, Isabella thought about everything that had happened. The chaos and drama, the accusations and consequences, the love that had somehow survived it all. She thought about Minho sacrificing his predetermined future to defend her. About Jinwoo learning to let go with grace. About finding herself in the process of nearly losing everything. She pulled out her phone and sent Minho a text. Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for proving that love is action, not just words. His response came immediately. Thank you for being worth choosing, for making me better, for showing me what actually matters. I love you. She smiled at her phone, warmth flooding her chest. I love you too. See you tomorrow. Always, he replied. That's the promise. Tomorrow and every day after. The summer before university passed in a blur of preparation and work, and stolen moments together. They were both working multiple jobs, saving money, getting ready for the independence of college life. Minho found an affordable apartment near campus, refusing to accept his father's money even when it was grudgingly offered. Isabella kept her scholarship and her dignity, her reputation fully restored. They moved into university housing at the same time. Different buildings, but close enough to walk between them. The first few weeks were overwhelming. New classes and new people and the pressure of proving themselves all over again. But they had each other. Study sessions in the library, quick meals between classes, late-night phone calls when the stress got too much. One evening, a month into their first semester, they sat on the quad watching other students pass by. Minho had aced his first economics exam. Isabella had gotten top marks in her marketing presentation. They were both exhausted and happy and exactly where they wanted to be. This is going to work, Isabella said. More statement than question. Minho nodded, pulling her against his side. Yeah, he agreed. It's going to be hard sometimes. We'll fight in stress and probably cry, but it's going to work, because we're going to make it work. She tilted her head up to kiss him, soft and sweet and full of promise. A passing group of students whistled teasingly, but they ignored it, lost in their own moment. When they finally pulled apart, both smiling, Isabella felt certain about their future in a way she'd never felt certain about anything before. They had each other. They had their education. They had a chance to build something real and lasting. This wasn't the end of their story. It wasn't even really the beginning. It was the moment they decided who they were going to become, both individually and together. The moment they chose partnership over ease, growth over comfort, love over fear, and as they walked back to their separate dorms, hands clasped and plans already forming for tomorrow, both of them knew this was exactly where they were supposed to be. Years later, when people asked how they met, they'd talk about a cafeteria and a lunch tray and two boys competing for the same girl. They'd talk about surviving false accusations and social warfare, about learning what really matters when everything else is stripped away. They'd talk about choosing each other every single day, through university and careers and whatever life threw at them next. But tonight, they were just two 18-year-olds figuring things out one day at a time. Two people who'd found something real in the chaos of high school and refused to let it go. Two hearts that had chosen each other against all odds and all obstacles and all expectations. And that, they both thought as they said goodnight, was the best possible beginning to any love story worth telling.